My cousin drives one of those double-decker tour buses in Dublin. Last August, this American woman got on at Trinity College, settled into her seat, and within 30 seconds asked him why Ireland doesn't use dollars. She pulled out a handful of euros and said they looked like monopoly money, and that most civilized countries accept American currency as a backup. He tried explaining Ireland has its own economy, but she interrupted him to say that when her grandfather visited in the 70s, everything was priced in dollars. He asked her where exactly her grandfather went. She said Dublin. He said, "Ma'am, Ireland joined the Eurozone in 1999. We never used dollars." She looked at him like he'd insulted her family and said her grandfather wouldn't lie about something like that, and that she knows for a fact the Guinness Storehouse takes dollars because it's an international landmark. He gave up and drove the route in silence. I work a souvenir kiosk near the Eiffel Tower. An American guy asked me last month why the tower wasn't painted gold. I told him it's iron, been that color for over a century. He said that's a shame because it'd look way better gold, like the Statue of Liberty used to be. I said the statue was never gold, it's copper that oxidized green. He said no, it was definitely gold originally. He saw it in a history documentary, and they should have kept it that way because green looks cheap. I didn't know what to say to that. My brother manages a hostel in Prague. American couple checked in last week and asked where the nearest Walmart was. He said there's no Walmart in Prague, but there's a Tesco down the street. They asked what a Tesco was. He said it's like a European Walmart. The woman asked if they take credit cards or only cash because Europe seems really behind on technology. He said they take cards. She asked if they'd need an adapter for their card or if American cards work in European machines. He stared at her for a solid 5 seconds before saying cards are universal, ma'am. I work the front desk at a hotel in Vienna. This American family checked in on a Sunday afternoon and asked what time the mall opens. I said most stores are closed on Sundays here. The father looked confused and said it's not a holiday, why would everything be closed? I explained it's standard across much of Austria, stores close Sundays for worker rest days. He said that's the worst business model he'd ever heard, that they're losing an entire day of revenue. I said it's been the law for decades, it's about work-life balance. He said sure, but what if someone needs something urgently like groceries or batteries? I suggested planning ahead or visiting a train station shop. He said this would never fly in America because it's basically forcing people to go without essentials. I mentioned people here shop on Saturday and plan their weeks accordingly. He said that sounds like communism, making people schedule their lives around store hours. His wife asked if Amazon delivers on Sundays at least. I said yes, but most people don't shop that way here. He muttered something about Europe being 20 years behind and walked off. My aunt runs a bakery in Bergen, Norway. Last summer, an American woman came in at noon, ordered a coffee, and asked why there was no Wi-Fi password posted anywhere. My aunt said we don't offer Wi-Fi, it's a small bakery. The woman said every coffee shop in America has free Wi-Fi, that it's basically required now. My aunt said people come here to enjoy their coffee, not work on laptop. The woman said that's incredibly inconvenient and anti-customer, that she needs to check her email. My aunt suggested the library 2 blocks away. The woman said she's a paying customer and shouldn't have to leave to access basic services. My aunt said it's not a basic service here, it's a bakery. The woman asked to speak to the owner. My aunt said you're speaking to her. The woman left a 1-star review online saying Norwegian bakeries are stuck in the past and hostile to modern need. I'm a pharmacist in Munich. American tourist came in last month asking for Advil. I said we have ibuprofen, showed him the shelf. He said no, he needs Advil specifically, not the generic stuff. I explained it's the same medication, just different branding. He insisted American Advil works better because it's FDA approved. I said European medications follow EMA standards. They're equally rigorous. He said he doesn't trust German medicine because they use the metric system for dosages and it seems imprecise. I said the metric system is more precise than imperial. He said that's not what his doctor told him, and that Americans invented most modern medicine anyway, so we should follow their standard. I handed him the ibuprofen. He bought it but said he's only taking half doses to be safe because European strength is probably different. I manage a gym in Copenhagen. American guy signed up for a month, used the facilities twice, then complained we don't have paper towels in the locker room. I said we use regular towels, there's a hamper for used ones. He said that's unsanitary, everyone's touching the same towels. I said they're washed after each use, it's more environmentally friendly. He said in America gyms provide disposable everything because it's more hygienic. I said we don't see it that way here, reusable is standard. He said he's not comfortable using towels other people have touched, even if they're washed, because you can't be sure they're really clean. I offered to let him bring his own towels. He said he shouldn't have to, that the gym should provide disposable options like every modern facility. I said we're not changing our system. He canceled his membership and wrote online that Danish gyms are unhygienic and stuck in the 70s. I work at a library in Helsinki. American student came in last week asking why we require silence in the reading areas. I said it's a library, that's standard everywhere. She said American libraries have collaboration spaces where people can talk freely and work in group. I said we have group study rooms you can book. She said but the main area should allow conversation because learning is social. I explained Finnish library culture values quiet concentration. She said that's exclusionary to people who process information verbally. I suggested she book a study room. She said she shouldn't have to book anything, public spaces should be flexible. I said the quiet areas exist because people specifically want silence. She said in America they've modernized libraries to be community hubs, not silent museums. I handed her the study room booking sheet. She said this would never work in America because we value freedom of expression. My sister's a waitress at a trattoria in Florence. American couple sat down last month and immediately asked for ice water. She brought them water, no ice. The man said he specifically asked for ice. She said we don't typically serve it with ice here. He said that's bizarre, water should always be cold. She said the water is cool, just not iced. He said it's room temperature, which is basically warm, and that cold water aids digestion. She said actually room temperature is better for digestion according to Italian food culture. He said that's not scientifically true, Americans have studied this extensively. She offered to bring ice from the bar. He said yes and fill the entire glass with ice then add water. She brought a glass of ice with a splash of water. He complained there's no water, it's just ice. She explained that's what happens when you fill a glass with ice. He said in America they make it work, the ice and water coexist. She didn't go back to that table for 10 minutes. I work at a cafe in Brussels. American woman ordered a coffee last week and asked for it to go. I said we don't really do to go here, most people sit and drink. She said she's in a hurry and needs it in a paper cup. I said we have ceramic cups only. She said that's impractical, what if people have places to be? I said then they usually don't order coffee or they drink it quickly at the bar. She said this is terrible customer service, that any business should accommodate customers who are busy. I made her coffee in a ceramic cup. She stood there holding it awkwardly and asked if I have a lid. I said no, it's a cup. She said she can't walk around with an open cup, she'll spill it. I suggested sitting for 5 minutes. She said American coffee culture is way ahead of Europe because they understand people have lives. She eventually sat down, took 3 sips, and left the full cup on the counter. I'm a bartender in Lisbon. American group came in last month and ordered beers. Bill came to €30. They left 45, a €15 tip. I walked over and asked if there was a mistake. One guy said no, that's your tip, you earned it. I said we don't really tip like that here, service is included. He said he knows, but he wants to tip anyway because he appreciates good service. I said it's too much, genuinely. He said in America they tip 20% minimum, and he likes to tip more abroad because he knows European servers make less. I explained Portuguese servers make a living wage, we don't rely on tip. He said that's great, but he still wants to give it because good service deserves reward. I said it makes the other customers uncomfortable when they see this, they think they're supposed to tip big too. He looked offended and said he's just trying to be generous. I took the tip because arguing felt worse, but his table got weird looks from locals all night. My uncle owns a restaurant in Krakow. American family came in last summer and asked if they could get their meal in takeout containers so they could eat in their hotel. I said we don't offer takeout, we're a dine-in restaurant. The father said they're staying nearby and want to eat Polish food in their room while watching TV. I said the food is meant to be eaten here, fresh and hot. He said they'll eat it right away, they just prefer a private setting. I said it changes the experience, the plating, everything is designed for the table. He said they don't care about plating, they just want the food. I relented and boxed everything up. They came back the next night and complained the food wasn't as good. I said because you ate it from containers in a hotel room instead of fresh off the plate. He said food is food, the location doesn't matter. His wife said the portions were small anyway. I said they ordered full meals. She said full meals in America are twice this size. I said Polish portions are traditional. She said traditional or not, they expected more for the price. I'm a waiter at a pub in Dublin. American guy ordered fish and chips last month, ate half, then asked for a doggy bag. I said we don't really do that here. He said what do you mean, he paid for it. I said people usually finish their meals or leave what they can't eat. He said in America it's standard to take leftovers home, that wasting food is irresponsible. I said Irish portions are meant to be finished in one sitting. He said his portion was huge, there's no way anyone finishes this. I said most people do. He said then Irish people must have eating disorders or unrealistic expectations about food. I brought him some tinfoil. He wrapped up his chips himself and said European restaurants need to normalize doggy bags because it's the environmentally conscious thing to do. I said nothing and cleared his table. I worked the ticket counter at a train station in Zurich. American woman came up last month and asked for a ticket to Paris. I said there's a direct train at 2, arrives at 6. She asked why it takes 4 hours when Paris is like an hour by plane. I said the train is very comfortable, scenic route. She said but 4 hours is a huge waste of time. I said many people prefer trains, you see the countryside, no airport hassle. She said she doesn't care about countryside, she wants efficiency. I suggested flying then. She said flights are expensive and she already has a Eurail pass. I said then the train is your option. She said can't they make trains faster like bullet trains? I said this is a high-speed train. She said it doesn't sound very high-speed if it takes 4 hours. I said it's traveling through mountains and multiple countries. She said Japan figured out bullet trains decades ago, Europe should catch up. I sold her the ticket. She came back an hour later and said she missed the train because the platform signs are confusing. My cousin's a taxi driver in Athens. Picked up an American couple last week from the airport. They asked to go to Santorini. I said Santorini is an island, you need a flight or ferry. The husband said just drive there, it's all Greece. I said it's in the Aegean Sea, 200 kilometers away. He said highways go everywhere in America, just take the highway. I said there's no highway to an island. He said then, how do people get there normally? I said ferry from Piraeus or a flight. He said that's inconvenient, Greece should build a bridge. His wife agreed and said island nations should have better infrastructure. I said it's not a nation, it's an island in Greece. She said same thing. I drove them to their Athens hotel. They tipped me €2 and said it's generous because the ride was short. I work at a tourist information desk in Stockholm. American guy came in last month and asked where the bathroom was. I said down the hall, pointed to the sign that says toilet. He came back 5 minutes later and said he couldn't find it. I said, did you follow the signs? He said there were only signs for toilets, not bathrooms. I stared at him and said the toilet is the bathroom. He said no, a toilet is just the toilet, he needs the whole bathroom. I said in Europe we call the room with the toilet a toilet. He said that's crude, Americans use proper terms like restroom or bathroom. I said those are euphemisms, we're direct here. He said it's not about directness, it's about being polite and not talking about bodily functions. I said the word toilet isn't impolite, it's accurate. He asked if I could just tell him where the restroom is without the cultural lesson. I pointed again. He walked off muttering about Europeans being vulgar. I drive a tour bus in Edinburgh. Last summer, American man on my tour kept asking why Scotland isn't part of England. I explained Scotland is its own country within the UK. He said but it's all one island, so it's basically England. I said no, Scotland has its own legal system, culture, even its own parliament. He said that sounds unnecessarily complicated, they should just unify everything for efficiency. I said Scotland values its independence. He said sure, but from a practical standpoint, combining governments would save money. I said Scottish people fought for centuries to maintain autonomy. He said he respects history, but modern economics matter more. His wife asked if Scottish people speak English or Scottish. I said we speak English, Scots is a separate language but most speak English day to day. She said so why have two languages if everyone speaks English anyway? I said cultural preservation. She said that seems inefficient. I stopped answering their questions after that. I work at a metro station in Budapest. American tourist asked me last week why all the signs are in Hungarian. I said because we're in Hungary. She said but it's a major tourist city, signs should be in English too. I said major stations have English translations below the Hungarian. She said she didn't see any. I pointed directly at the bilingual sign above her head. She said the English is too small, they should make it the primary language. I said English isn't our primary language, Hungarian is. She said sure, but more people speak English globally, so it's more practical. I said this is Hungary, we prioritize our own language. She said that's nationalist and unwelcoming to visitors. I said we have translation apps now, people manage fine. She said apps aren't the same as proper signage, and that progressive countries make English primary in tourist areas. I said we're not doing that. She walked away saying Budapest is beautiful but not very tourist-friendly. I'm a bus driver in Reykjavik. American family got on last month and asked if I could drop them at the Blue Lagoon. I said this is a city bus, it doesn't go there. The father said can't you just make a detour, they'll pay extra. I said it's a fixed route, I can't change it. He said in America bus drivers are more flexible with routes if passengers have special need. I said this isn't America, and going to the Blue Lagoon isn't a special need. He said they only have one day in Iceland and really want to see it. I suggested booking a tour bus or renting a car. He said they already paid for bus passes, why should they pay more? I said because city buses serve city routes. His wife said Iceland's public transport is very limited compared to America. I said Iceland has 300,000 people, not 300 million. She said still, they should have better tourist infrastructure. I drove my route and they got off looking annoyed. I manage a hostel in Amsterdam. American guest checked out yesterday and left a comment card saying we need to improve our customer service culture because Europeans don't understand hospitality the way Americans do. Listed complaints. No free breakfast, no ice machines, front desk not staffed at night, room was too quiet and made him uncomfortable because he's used to city noise. Suggested we study American hotels and implement their standards, said it'd help us compete in the global market. He gave us 2 stars out of 5 and said he'd recommend Prague instead because at least they're trying to modernize. My brother runs a rental car company in Barcelona. American couple returned their car last week and complained about how small European parking spaces are, how narrow the roads are, how confusing the signs are. Said Europe needs to adopt American infrastructure standards because it's clearly superior. Left a review saying Europeans are stuck in medieval layouts and should bulldoze old cities to make room for proper highways and parking lot. 3 stars because at least the car had air conditioning.